Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening or morning or afternoon or wherever you are. And I'm really excited to offer this and talk about how you can get started by using old artifacts to give new life to use in your instructional design portfolio. So if we haven't met, my name is Kara North and I have been in learning and development for my entire professional career, which is 10 plus years. I feel older and older every day. And I really just wanted to do something to try to help people. I've seen a lot of, let's say, shady things going on that I don't necessarily agree with. And if you want that tea, then, I might give it to you. You never know. But if this is my first time meeting you again, I'm very excited that you're here. And yeah, let's go ahead and hop right into it. And if you want to just take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, we've got some great welcomes in there so far from Cherie, Jerry, Veronica, Jenny, Jacqueline. So if you want to introduce yourself, feel free. All right. So, love to know also how you found out about this. If you want to share if maybe someone told you about it, or you follow me on social media, or you don't really know how you ended up here, that's fine too. I'll take whatever. So basically what this is a few months ago, I decided that I should try to do more in the instructional design community. I don't know why I thought that. I feel like I kind of do plenty, but I wanted to do something to kind of battle some of the bad stuff that I saw out there. And so I kind of felt this calling in my heart to do something. So I put out this application process and I said, let's see if anybody would like to work with me and, get some help. And I was just blown away. There were over 300 applicants for the program, which I did not expect at all. And my expectation was I was going to kind of take a small sliver of that population, mentor them, help them, support them, and guide them through their instructional design journey. But then when I saw the numbers, I was like, I don't want to leave this many people hanging. If this many people say they need help, I want to do something to help them. So hence, here we are. So this is what this is. So that's kind of what I decided to do and why I'm doing it. Again, this is a free and open community for everyone. I'm really low key and chill. I just ask for everyone to be respectful. I don't tolerate crap. I just don't have time for it. So if you want to go be mean and hateful, go do it somewhere else. And yeah, we actually, before we dive into it, if you click the button underneath this video, it should say Project Resources. It'll take you to a Google Doc that will kind of link everything. But honestly, the best way to kind of get plugged in is through the Slack channel. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But if you're not already on the Slack, there's a link if you want to join that to connect with other people. They're also doing this. So yeah, I love that, Veronica. If people want to share their LinkedIn, I'm fine with that tonight. Usually I'm kind of annoyed by it, but this is like low key, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so really what I wanted to do is I wanted to provide people with real experience in building stuff out for their portfolio. I am a hiring manager. I run a learning development department in the semiconductor industry. And I've seen a lot of ugly portfolios. I've seen a lot of people get really crummy advice. And I just wanted to do something to help kind of guide people in the right direction, because I do think there's a lot of bad advice out there. Oh, there's my friend Dennis Green. Hello, Dennis. Always good to see you. Glad that you're here. So that was kind of, again, the thought behind this was, through projects and things, I could help maybe guide people to make better, more authentic portfolio artifacts. So currently, here's kind of what is going on. So I do have a main cohort. It's 10 people. Those 10 people I selected, again, through the application process. And those 10 people are going to be like personally mentored by me. And they actually have 2 real clients. So one is the Central Ohio ATD, and we're getting ready to kick that off actually next week, which is really exciting. And then we also have a really great project with an organization out of Indonesia for financial literacy. So I'm really excited about these, and even being part of the community. I'm going to be sharing stuff of what they're working on. I'm encouraging them to share in the Slack some of the things that they're making as well, so you can follow along on their journey. But again, there were so many people that were interested in this. This is why I made what I'm calling the open cohort, which again is open to everyone. And I just wanted to give people like a little project to work on and give you an opportunity too to also meet other people that are maybe looking to grow in the same way that you are. I tell people this all the time. The single best piece of career advice I can give you is build your network now. I lived most of my career under a rock. I actually started my instructional design career at Amazon back when they actually still sold books. And I didn't really network until I ended up moving to a different state and went from like a huge team to a team of two in a different industry. I went from corporate to higher education, and I found out really quickly I didn't know everything that I thought I did. And so that's when I found the value in networking and putting yourself out there. So again, to this day, I have a very tight-knit network of people that I rely on that's almost like family to me now, and we really help each other through a lot of the challenges that we have in our job. And one other thing I always like to say too is, you're never going to know everything in this profession. And that is something that's very difficult for a lot of people to understand, but I actually really kind of like it because it challenges me to continue to grow and improve as well. So really encourage you to build your network, meet other people, engage with them, and they can help you along the way. And I see one of the members of my network actually just joined, Mr. Suarez. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, so again, you all are going to be part of the open cohort, and so we're going to go through kind of what that looks like now. So, yep, the open cohort. I forgot that I made that slide. Okay, so if you actually click the button underneath the video, like I said a little bit earlier, there is a link to an old training manual. And this training manual is from 2015, so it's got a little bit of age to it. It is something that was found on just a Google search. It's open, and didn't mean to hit my microphone there. Sorry if that went through. And basically, I want you to look at this because I will tell you, and other people in the chat or audience that maybe you're already working in instructional design, hopefully you'll back me up here, but this is a common task that a lot of instructional designers have on the job. Hey, we have this old course manual, we have a instructor-led training, we want to move online. It is something that you're going to have to deal with in a work environment. It will be something that you deal with in your career. So I thought, well, how apropos if we take an old training manual and use it and reimagine it to create something for your portfolio. And so that is kind of what I wanted to do tonight, is walk you through the process, take any questions. If you have any questions, if you'd be kind enough to put them in the Ask a Question feature, and I'll get those. If anyone feels comfortable, they want to come on camera and talk, please feel free. Just let me know, and I'll bring you on. So, Joe, if you want to come on, I'll bring you on camera if you want to be on there. Or Dennis, I know you always have great insights too. If you want to come on and talk, that'd be great too. But I want this to be something for you all, and I really want this to be helpful, but I do also want to set expectations that I don't have the bandwidth to support 300 people on their instructional design journey. I wish I did, but I don't. I've really learned the value of saying no more, despite the fact I keep building stuff and putting it out there. So this is, again, just something I wanted to do to try to support more people and give you all something to work on in a safe environment. All right, so if you open up the manual, it's a very social issue driven. So the background of this manual was this was made in conjunction with a couple nonprofit and government organizations for Kenya. And it really focused specifically on people who are tea farmers in Kenya if they wanted to kind of start their own business and make better decisions around kind of the way that they run their farms and whatnot. So some of this is really kind of interesting. I do also realize that some of this might potentially be a trigger for some folks. So just because it's here and this is what I'm providing, please don't feel like you have to necessarily use this content. If it's something you feel uncomfortable with, I invite you to try to find something else. I'm a big fan of Kristen Anthony's GoDesignSomething.co. That gives you some nice little prompts to get started if you're interested in doing that. But basically what I'm proposing, if you want to kind of get started on a portfolio piece, is in this manual, you don't need to make all 9 of these. I think that's a really big undertaking. But select one of these that seems somewhat interesting to you, and then kind of go through that, and that's what you will use for the basis of your artifact. So, oh, I got a question. Let me see if that's something I can answer now. All right, Christine has a question about, will there be a higher ed focused cohort after this one is finished? I don't know. It really depends on my mental health and bandwidth. We'll put it that way. So the organization I work for full time is more and more demanding of my time, but this is something I also signed up for and was really craving in my career. So that's kind of my first kind of priority with this. It does take a lot of time away from my family and life doing things like this. So I guess we'll see kind of how this goes, but I don't necessarily want to make any promises that I would continue this in the future. This might be one of those like one and done kind of things. Or better yet, what would be really cool is if somebody goes through this and would like to do something like this in the future, because the reason that I like giving, the reason I like helping is because so many people helped me get to where I am in my career, and I think that that is the best gift I can give to the world is, by paying it forward. So that would be my hope, Christine, that somebody that goes through this has a good experience and would want to kind of carry the torch going forward. However, I will say, if anyone is interested in being a higher education ID or wants to know more about that, I am a complete open book. I did higher ed ID for 7 years, and I have very strong opinions about it. So if you want to kind of know what it's really like, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. If that's something you want to do, or if you have specific questions tonight you want me to answer, I'll do that too. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, Christine. Maybe I'll leave it at that. Maybe. Priya has a great question about the open source for content sourcing. I'll put it here in the response, Priya, for you. It's called GoDesignSomething.co. So GoDesignSomething.co. I put it there, so you should be able to get it, and anyone else that wants to take a look at that. All right. Good stuff. Oh, you're most welcome. No problem. Okay. So if any of these topics speak to you or something that you would like to do, feel free. Again, trigger, not feeling it, completely fine. Because I also feel like your portfolio should also have a little bit of you in it. I've seen way too many that are, I hate to say it, but just soulless. Like, they have no joy. They are very kind of staccato and bland, and I don't get a sense of who the person is looking at it. So, I always encourage people to put some of their own personality in it. I always think it's good to know a little bit about like what they're into. So if I see somebody that has like something that maybe is video game inspired, I'm like, they're probably a gamer, which is pretty cool, right? So, and I remember those more than, here's a compliance course that I made about this for a fake client. It's just a little bit more, hard to, I guess, connect with on a human level. But again, this is, just a topic. If you got nothing and you're struggling with thinking about what on earth can I even build anything about, I think this would be an attractive option, because you can spin it as something of, this was an existing manual, I looked to make it into an e-learning, and here's the process that I took. So that's kind of what I was thinking with this. All right. So if you're wanting to actually do this and you're like, I'm committed to this, I want to make this, I made this little kind of Gantt chart to walk you through from a project management perspective what would be some of the stuff that you would be doing, because a lot of times people are like, I don't know how to get started. I don't know what the deliverables are. What does that look like? Can you help me? So this is what I made this for. So, I'll go ahead and you're currently, I guess, here, right, in week 1. So you'd be gathering information, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. But after you kind of get a good sense of the information, what it is that you're going to be designing for, then you're going to go into the storyboard phase. And if you're not familiar with any technology or tools, or you just need to practice, I recommend kind of doing those simultaneously, because a lot of times, at least I know when I was first getting started, I would have these really awesome ideas, and then I would be limited by my capability in various tools, or how to build it, I don't know. And, then you research, is this possible to make in this tool, or is this possible to make in this tool? And then looking around, getting inspiration from others to see if it's something that you can build. And so I know that that's very symbiotic. Again, as you are getting your skills developed, it's something that happens often. So yeah, I agree, Veronica. Storyboarding is a really hard practice, and it's even something I think I struggle with, because this is so automatic to me at this point. I don't even think about a storyboard. Like, I dream it up here and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a prototype right now. And I think that's okay. So depending on the organizations that you go to and how you present this in your portfolio, if you are more of a prototype person, I think that's okay. I've seen a lot of people also build like little wireframes. I've seen people build like little fake interactions in Adobe XD. There's a ton of ways that you can approach the way that you're storyboarding. So, and specifically, again, if you are interested in the development side of what we do, take this as an opportunity to learn a tool along with it, right? So that way, again, you're kind of honing more than just one skill. I think is always good when you have the opportunity to do so. So after you kind of get that, then I would expect you would, build whatever it is that you're going to build. And then if you join our Slack, you're more than welcome to share it in there for a review. And also, I know there's been some people in the Slack talk about getting like a group together to work on stuff. You absolutely can. There's several people in there that are looking for partners to work with us on. So if the thought of, I don't know if I'm ready to do this solo, is kind of daunting to you, that's absolutely fine. You can pair up with somebody that's already in there, or if you have a friend that's interested in learning this is still open for anybody. The Slack is open. I don't necessarily moderate it unless it gets a little cray, but haven't had to do that yet. Well, actually, I did have to do that. I'll back up. Just one person. That's nothing. No big deal. So you build something and you share it for a review, and then, you get the feedback from the review, hopefully, and then you can finalize it. And then you would talk about like maybe how you'd implement it. And that could be, you could put it in a learning management system. You talk about what that would look like. Or, the nice thing is if you get a trial of like Articulate Storyline 360, you can host it in the review link, which is nice. And then, monitor it for evaluation. And that's a big peeve of mine. I think it's really critical to know what the impact of what it is that you're building is, because otherwise, what's the point? So that's something that I'm a pretty big stickler for, and something that I don't see enough IDs addressed in their portfolio. So again, I'm thinking strategically, how can you stand out from the sea of all the other portfolios? I think there's a lot of ways that you can approach this that would help. Cindy, you have a great question about, are IDs expected to know several tools? That's a great question. So I think it kind of depends on what an ID does at the organization. So there's kind of a lot of flavors of it. I am seeing the market shift to, you need to be able to do a little bit of everything. However, there are people that specialize. So there's some people that specialize like in the analysis and curriculum development, and then they hand it over to an e-learning developer to kind of build it out. However, I think those roles are shrinking more and more, at least just looking kind of at the market. I did some peer-reviewed research actually on job descriptions last year. It just got published last week, which is a big deal because it takes so long to get published in higher ed, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. But just to kind of let you know, we scanned it for the top tools that were listed in job descriptions. The number one tool was Articulate Storyline. Number two was Adobe Captivate. Number three was TechSmith Camtasia, and then number four was Vyond. So those were the tools that were listed the most in the sample of the job descriptions that I used in my research. Now, is that going to be the same across everywhere? No, there are limitations. This was a U.S. sample, so the global market might look a little bit different. But at least for the U.S., that was the sample. Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. I really appreciate it. It was really important to me to do research that I thought mattered to people. Not to say that research doesn't matter, but I think that there's often a disconnect between true researchers and practice, and people always talk about bridging the gap between theory and practice, but I really wanted it to be focused on instructional designers, so I appreciate that. Vyond, yes. So I mean, here's the thing with Vyond. I think that that's a tool that is very niche. And again, Joe, I don't know if you're still here live, if you want to talk about this or not, but I can see something and know it's a Vyond immediately because it is very limited in the characters and the aesthetics of it. And I have seen people do some really creative stuff with Vyond, pairing it with another tool. In particular, Jonathan Hill, if you know who that is, does some really great stuff with it. Samuel Apatow is another guy that does a lot of cool stuff with it that kind of extrapolates the Vyond assets, puts them into a storyline, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. But me personally, I'm just kind of over it, and that's just my own bias speaking. However, I do know there's a lot of organizations that use it and like it, but it's not something that we currently use at my organization. However, my team's like, let's get a license because they've tried it out, so we might buy it. I don't know. We'll see. All right, got another question here. Okay, Priya's got a question. Before we start building the course, should we ask what real world problems is this course or e-learning solution going to solve? Yeah, it's coming. I got it on a slide. So I'm just giving an overview, but you are on it. So I appreciate that, Priya. We'll get to that here in a minute. All right. Another question from Priya. I love it. It's great. Keep them coming. How do we decide when to use action mapping and when to use more of the traditional Addie and Sam? All right. Great question. So I will tell you, at least again, my experience in kind of building and doing stuff. I think action mapping is really effective in a corporate environment that's very heavily data driven. And what I mean by that is if there is data that is monitored and collected vigorously throughout the organization, action mapping is fantastic. So I'm very blessed to work in manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very data rich organization and field, and so we can usually say that whatever we create is going to impact some of the big metrics that we monitor on a daily basis at our organization, which would be how many widgets do we make and how many widgets go out the door and how many quality widgets were made and things like that, right? Now, when you talk about Addie or Sam, I look at them a little bit different. So Addie, again, this is a little soapbox here. I don't feel like Addie is a model. I know that's said a lot. Again, I've already made the internet mad twice today, so I might as well just keep on going today. So Addie is kind of like a project management framework. And so if you look at the way that Addie is put out, the analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation, like right here, it's really a way to think about kind of the different parts of your project. You got to go through the analysis and then the design and then the development and then the implementation and evaluation. But where I get my pitchfork out is when people are like, oh, it's an instructional design model. No, it's not, because if it was an instructional design model, it would be exclusive to instructional design, and it's not, because you can do these to make a decision on what car you're going to buy, or build a paper airplane, or make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So that's just my little side soapbox on that. And Priya, I'm sure you didn't want me to go there. But talking about Sam, I think of Sam in the same light. I think of Sam as kind of a way to manage your project going forward. Whereas I think action mapping is really focused on the outcomes of what it is. Like, what is the impact of what it is that you're making, right? It's so good about focusing on that impact versus Addie is, again, how are you going to approach the project? And Sam is, again, kind of the same way, successive approximation model, if you're not familiar with it. And essentially with Sam, it's like you build almost kind of like a minimal viable product, or you build something and push it out for feedback, and then you iterate and then push it out for feedback. So it's like kind of this iterative loop that you get continuous feedback on, which is wonderful, because obviously the more feedback that you get, the better, hopefully, that your product's going to be. So hopefully that helped answer your question, Priya. I love it. I think it's a fantastic question. And I do think there's a lot of confusion around that, because instructional design is an alphabet soup. And I realize it's very difficult for a lot of people to navigate it. But I also think there's a lot of people making a lot of noise that they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, I said that too. It's after hours. I'm being really unfiltered tonight. So, okay. All right. So any questions so far? I mean, obviously these are great questions about instructional design and the process and everything, but I hope that at least visualizing something like this is helpful. Now, please note, you don't have to follow this. This is just something I'm providing to you. This project for you is going to be very, very self-guided. I might do one or two more of these sessions just to kind of check in and guide people along the way, but I unfortunately will not be able to project manage every single person that decides to do this, because I have kind of vested into the main cohort and those individuals and our real clients that we have. Okay. All right, so the question you might be wondering is, how on earth can I use something like this on my portfolio? And really, I think there are a ton of things that you could create from a project like this to put on your portfolio. And these are some things that, I'm thinking about, making you stand out, making you more competitive in the job market. These are things that I think a lot of hiring managers would be really excited to see in a portfolio. Something I certainly do not see enough of is, the questions and answers about what it is that you're doing. So Priya, your question earlier about, what are we trying to accomplish? What's the goal? I don't see enough of that kind of dialogue in a lot of portfolio pieces. A lot of times it's like, this is what it was and this is what we created, the end. Hope you like it. And yeah, I mean, you're showing me kind of all the stuff, but again, myself, I want to understand more of your process. And I think understanding a little bit more about where your head is, how you approached it, some of the questions you asked, I think that's really critical, because you get a sense of who they are as a designer as they're going through that. I'm also a big fan of storyboards. So if you have a storyboard or a wireframe that you create as you're kind of going through the process, I think that's really powerful. Seeing the final product again is one thing, but telling the journey, I think, is also something a lot of people leave out. So storyboards and wireframes can do that. Any videos that you might make a little video of something, that would be fine. If you make an e-learning out of this, you could definitely use Rise, Storyline, Captivate, etc. There's all kinds of tools out there that you could use. Another one, again, especially if you're looking to go into higher ed, accessibility considerations. Do you have a script if it goes along with a video? How would you alt text images? Did the color contrast meet web accessibility guidelines? Things like that. I don't see hardly anybody putting anything like that in their portfolio. But again, it shows that you are thinking about all users, and it really, again, shows the kind of designer that you are. Evaluation questions. This is another big one. How's it being evaluated? What does that process look like? What are the questions that you're going to have people answer to see if they're motivated or interested in what it is that they want to do? Marketing copy. Now this one is kind of interesting. I think it's really critical anytime you roll something out to explain why it's happening. And so, my current organization, I am extremely blessed. We have a communications department we work in tandem with. Anytime we create anything to go out, we pair it with a communication. And that communication is kind of from a change management perspective of, this is why we created this, this is what we're trying to impact, and here's your role in it. And if you have any questions, here's who you need to contact. Just to let people know that it's coming. Because there's nothing worse than you working and then getting that notification of there's something that you got to take. And that's when people will wait till the last minute and not care, especially when they're like, I don't see myself in this, right? Like, compliance training is notoriously bad for this. So everyone gets the annual compliance training. Well, the reason why so many people don't like compliance training is because they don't see their own value in it. They're like, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't talk to someone like that. Like, I just need to click through this and get back to work. I mean, that's how bad it is. They'd rather work than go through your learning experience. We don't want that, right? So really focusing again on how you will hook the user in to wanting to go through it. That is definitely a skill, and it's something that you could really easily add value to a team, especially if you're looking at like a junior instructional design role or like your first instructional design role. If you can say that that's something that you care about, I guarantee you a lot of teams out there do not have something like this, and they would hire you almost instantly. So I think that would be a good thing that you could do. Excuse me. Okay. Feedbacks and edits. So as you're going through the process, things that you want to share, any iterations, any feedback and how you handled it, that's appropriate. And then any kind of lessons learned, any notes throughout the process, any kind of reflection on, I wish I would have done that better, or, I think that went really well. I think that's also very important. So let me know in the chat. Does this sound good? I mean, did anybody think of all these? Is any of this kind of surprising? Again, I think there's just so much focus on that final piece, but again, my own bias as a hiring manager, I want to see the journey. Like that's to me the beautiful part, right? The journey. How did you get there? I just think that's something that again a lot of people just don't think about. So, all right, okay, I'll keep going. So, question is, how to get started, and that's a good one because you're like, that's why I'm here. I want to get started. So, oh, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. So, basically, kind of the way I would start here is that, and this is also in the little onboarding Rise module if you want to take a look at that in the form below. But I think the first thing, and again, this is my own process when I'm getting things and looking at it, is I really, really, really want to focus on, taking it all in. And I do really, really like to, read everything. And so the way that I take things in is if I get all the content and I'm kind of going through it, I like to look at it first. So I invite you, like if you're using the manual, just read the chapter or the section or whatever end to end to start, and then go back a second time and then put your thinking cap on of, okay, well, what would this mean? Are there any gaps here? What is it that someone needs to do with this information, etc.? So that kind of helps guide you throughout it. And then given that this is an old manual, you may have to bring in additional research. And, sometimes that's common in the workplace too. I hate to say it, but sometimes you don't have a SME available. Now, that's a very dangerous situation. It's more dangerous when the instructional designer is the SME. I do not believe in that at all, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. I think there's a lot of bias you can bring in to the final product, but going out, doing some research, looking a little bit about, Kenyan tea supply, or again, if you're going to use a different topic, that's completely fine too. But I know on the Go Design Something, there's one about how to read your electric bill appropriately. So, what's the average electric bill in your country? Or, if it's summer, like, does it raise? Or, like, what are some common fees that people complain about on various forms? I mean, there's all kinds of like little ancillary research that you can take that you can bring into a piece like this. And so that would kind of be where I would guide you next is, just take your time, look at it, read it through, see if there's any kind of gaps after that second read. And then if you're curious, or if you're like, it'd be really great to have more information, just go recon, go look out, see what other things that you can find to potentially bring that in. And oh my goodness, the chat exploded. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, Veronica says, usually I was told the end product is what they want to see. They review your portfolio in a few minutes. That can be true. However, I feel like if you made it to the portfolio review stage, they're going to spend more time on you. They're not looking at every single applicant's portfolio. They've already whittled that candidate pool down when it's portfolio time. So I think engaging them in like the dialogue, bringing them in, showing them the breadth of your work, that's something probably a lot of people aren't going to do. Again, I think it makes you stand out in a better way. Cindy, is my org the only one that doesn't allow needs assessment? Yikes! Ay caramba. They just say we need learning on this by this date. Oh my goodness. You're not allowed to talk to your people? That's horrible. There are organizations like that. And I've worked in organizations like that. And I always told myself, when it's my turn to lead, I'm not going to have a department like that. And so I made all these little kind of notes to myself of how I wanted learning to look and how I wanted my department to run or whatever. And for the most part, I'm able to do it now. And again, I know I'm in a different position. I can be in an influencing seat to make those decisions and have them adopted. But as an individual contributor or a part of a big team, it is difficult. So I'm sorry, Cindy. Let's see here. Jacqueline says, I heard you talk on a podcast with a male host, and he mentioned that he prefers seeing Addy project process rather than a short paragraph description. Yeah, I mean, you can do it that way too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However you want to kind of slice it and dice it. But I think just telling the story behind it is also very, very powerful. Yeah, it's hard to get compliance courses revamped. Yes, it certainly is. It kills your soul, doesn't it, after a time? Okay, Christine has a good question about what would be an example of a learning experiences marketing copy. Great question, and actually, I have some questions. So I actually did another series, I think, gosh, was that last week or week before, where I went through my entire instructional design process, start to finish. I did that for a conference online, and then I redid it because I sounded like I was talking in a garbage can, and I thought the audio was really bad, and I wanted to do it in a way that, people could actually hear what I was saying. So let me stop sharing here, and then bear with me, and I'll share that for you, Christine. So let me close this out, and then let me reshare. And then give me 1 second here. All right, here we are. And then, okay. So hopefully this helps, Christine. Let me make this a little bit easier to see. So basically here is some of the stuff that we put in it at work. So, first of all, we ask like how it's going to be communicated with our organization. Sometimes we put out things via email. Sometimes we have like digital signs that we use that's in our facilities. Many moons ago, back before cell phones were everywhere, I communicated stuff on the back of bathroom stalls or above urinals because back then you had a captive audience. So kind of depends on how it's going to be communicated. But really the big crux is, why is this coming? What is it that we're trying to do with it? Another big key, again, in my organization is like, what's the business priority? How's it going to be impacted? And again, what are the roles and responsibilities of the individual? So, you need to complete this by this date. There may be additional conversations about it with your team at these dates. So we kind of, again, set the expectations of what it is that they're going to be getting. So hopefully that helps you there. But if you have any other questions on that, let me know. Okay. All right. I think that is all that I had. So I'll go ahead and stop. Are there any additional questions that folks have? Is anybody super excited? Hopefully, right? Super excited to finally do something maybe with their portfolio. Maybe this is extra little nudge. I don't want to push anybody. It's a little nudge to help guide you. And again, just know that you're not in it alone. And if you need support, there's the Slack that you can join. And there's other people, again, in the community that are also looking to pivot and probably in the exact same situation that you are. So, hi, Tutor Jack. All right. Any other questions? If not, I will let everybody get back to their Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are. Actually, you know what? Let me look here. I always like looking at this. So currently, we have people with us on every continent currently except Australia and Antarctica. So that's pretty cool. So I like it. So wherever you are, Saturday, Friday, hope you have a nice evening. So with that, please remember, join the Slack. That's where all the communication happens. If this was helpful, please share this. So as soon as I'm done, you can actually watch the recording again by coming in the same link that got you here. Feel free to share it on social media if you want to do that and talk about it. But, we're just getting started, so the more the merrier. As long as people aren't trolls, they are welcome in the community. So with that, have a good evening, and thank you so much. Really, did I get another question? Oh, yes. Okay, so I got another question. Christine, love it. How can we present our closed captioning skills on our portfolio? It's a great question. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you have any, obviously video, that would be the first one. If you wanted to caption it that way, that would be good. Second would be if, for example, a podcast or an audio clip, if you had a transcript to go with it, that would be another way to do it. Or, basically I think those would be the main two for the closed captioning. But then also, depending on how you build it, if you build it in Captivate or Storyline, if you do have an audio track, you can also build in the captions that way. So there's multiple ways that you can build in the captions. So I think that was a great question. All right. Anything else? If not, I'm going to go back to playing Apex Legends. All right. All right. Well, thank you all again. Really look forward to learning with you. And if there's anything else I can do to help you, please feel free to connect. All of my social is on the form. And thank you so much and have a nice evening. All right. Thank you. All right. Bye.